Kingambit is the best Pokemon in Gen 9 OU. When a Pokemon's base form is the top tier Pokemon in its respective tier, you already know its final form is most likely going to be a very good one. Kingambit is no different as well, but to be the absolute best Mon in the official singles tier, well, that takes more than something else. So today, let's find out why Kingambit is the best Pokemon in the official singles metagame, or as we like to call it, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet OU. To answer this question, let's start with Kingambit's base form, aka Pawniard. The baby Darksteel has been a sheer force in the Little Cup tier since it was released back in Generation 5, and in the modern generation, it has only become better. With a high attack stat, a very respectable bulk, and one of the few Pokemon to have stab knockoff, there was no doubt that Pawniard was one of the highest used Pokemon in the Little Cup tier, currently sitting in an A+ rank in the latest Scarlet and Violet Little Cup tier. Now let's move on to its secondary evolution, aka B-Sharp. B-Sharp and its evolution line is the only Pokemon which has a unique Dark Steel typing. Now offensively, this is an amazing typing resisted by a handful of Pokemon only. Having one of the best abilities in the form of Defiant and a tremendously high base 125 attack stat, B-Sharp was an imminent threat in the Gen 8 Overused metagame. But as I had said previously, it takes more than something else to be a top tier OU Mon. B-Sharp, despite having some of the best arms in its arsenal, still was not even close to being the best Pokemon, and had to satisfy a spot in the almost bottom -B rank of the OU tier. Now, as they say, it's not about how you start but how you finish, and trust me, B-Sharp was not even close to being finished. Gen 9 or Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was all about B-Sharp. The already strong B-Sharp with a base stat total of 490 got an evolution. B-Sharp's evolution, aka Kingambit, not only did it retain B-Sharp's deadly Darksteel typing, but it boasted an attack stat of 135. However, with this tremendously high attack stat came its tremendously slow speed, capping it at a base 50. It was even slower than B-Sharp, which caps at a base 70. In general, if we see the OU tier, low base speed Pokemon are generally not a good offensive choice. In fact, there is only one Pokemon with a low base speed in the OU tier which is used offensively, and that being Azumarill. But then Azu has a really low rank standing at B+, indicating that in upcoming times it is most likely going to drop in the UU tier. Most low base speed Pokemon are used defensively because if you are slow, given the current generation power creep, your Pokemon is most likely going to faint before it can even throw an attack. Other support for slow Pokemon like Trick Room and Sticky Web is not very reliable. For example, Crabominable, having one of the best offensive typing, ability and tremendously high attack stat, could never ever make a spot in the higher tier only due to its low base speed. Same applies for Brood Bonnet, Arboliva and many others as well. But despite of all this, Kingambit had other plans in his mind. Not just offensively, but the King's defenses were also something not to joke about. A base 100 HP stat backed up by 120 defense and 85 special defense meant that it could not be easily taken down. Even super effective moves like a 4x weak body press from a defensive beast like Corvic Knight could not one-hit KO Kingambit. Other super effective common moves like Earthquake coming from a Great Tusk, which has one of the highest attack stat in the game, would do a mere damage more than half, which totally backed up its low speed. Apart from this, Kingambit has an amazing move pool which includes a signature move called Kowtow Cleave, a stab dark type move with an 85 base power, and this move ignores accuracy. If you think this is all, we are not even close. Not only a signature move, Kingambit received a signature ability called Supreme Overlord, which is one of the deadliest abilities ever created in the history of Pokemon, and it sounds so cool as well. Whenever a Pokemon from your team faints, Kingambit receives a 10% boost in its attacks, meaning that if Kingambit is the last Pokemon remaining in your team, all of its moves gets a 50% boost. From 85 base power, Kowtow Cleave increases to 127.5 base power. Let's not forget the fact that this boost is calculated not even considering an item. The king also has access to one of the strongest priority moves in the game, being Sucker Punch. A Supreme Overlord boosted Sucker Punch is most likely going to one-hit KO a non-resisted Pokemon. That's how strong the king is. Now, with the added feature of Testalization, Kingambit generally tears into one of the three types. Most commonly being Flying, which completely walls Great Tusk and turns it into a set of fodder. And most teams use Great Tusk as a means to check Kingambit. The second being Terra Fairy, which not only changes its 4x fighting weakness to a resisted type, but those Terra Blasts coming from a boosted Kingambit either 1-hit KOs or 2-hit KOs its checks. A Pokemon like Goldengo, which will most likely 1-hit KO a Terra Fairy Kingambit, cannot just click Make It Rain, as a Sucker Punch coming from the King will 1-hit KO almost all variants of Goldengos. Great Tusk and most other faster dragons are easily revenge killed or just set up upon by a Fairy Kingambit. Lastly, the most offensive variant of Kingambit is called Terra Dark. This takes its power to a level more than the strongest physical attacker in the respective tier. A Terra Dark boosted move is so strong that the bulkiest physical wall in the game, being Dondozo, has a 98% chance to get 2-hit KO'd with Kowtow Cleave. If Kingambit is the last Pokemon in your party and you Testalize into Dark, it's most likely going to kill everything with a Sucker Punch. Despite its low speed, Kingambit's insane bulk and priority Sucker Punch fills the gap very effectively, and its base 50 speed is just enough to outspeed its checks like a Corviknight with some speed investment. The biggest X factor of Kingambit is its ability to change the outcome of a game in a flash. From 5-0 down, a well-played Kingambit can easily turn the tables and reverse sweep the opponent. Most balanced teams rely on Kingambit to finish and end games, as it is that good. To put in that audacious amount of work, the King does not require a lot of support. It can fit in almost every style of teams. In hyper offense and balanced teams, it's mostly act as a late game cleaner. The Supreme Overlord plus Sucker Punch combination makes it extremely deadly. Most players tend to preserve their check like a Great Tusk until the end in order just to not get swept by Kingambit. Hence, other physical attackers like Dragonite are extremely freed up because Great Tusk, lacking reliable recovery, cannot take on every possible physical attackers. And most of the time, a Great Tusk fails to check Kingambit. The other thing which people tend to do is that predict all 8 Sucker Punches, which is like an impossible scenario. Well, unless you possess a good amount of industry stocks, which you can get by subscribing to the channel. Now in stall teams, Kingambit acts as an amazing check to the incredible dangerous Goldengo, which is immune to status conditions and is a big threat to stall just because it can nasty plot and sweep stalls in the get-go. It easily can bypass unaware special walls like Clodsire, as recover has been restricted to 8 PP only, and some Shadow Ball Spirit drops will send Clodsire out of commission. Hence Kingambit steps in to check Goldengo. Not only this, but a bulky Kingambit install can also check an opposing Kingambit. Most stall team variants tend to run low kick, which hits opposing Kingambit for 100 base power and a 4x super effective move, sending it out of commission. Good partner Pokemon for Kingambit include Glimora, which sets up all forms of hazards and feints, boosting its Supreme Overlord ability, and Iron Valiant, being a pinch hitter, getting rid of 1 or 2 opponent's Pokemon before fainting itself, boosting its partner Kingambit for a late game sweep. Let's all just admit, we have been swept by a late game Kingambit at least a few times. To be honest, there is not much we can do about it. Being one of the biggest threat to stall, Kingambit can rip apart stall in shreds, especially a Terra Dark Kingambit can straight up sweep stall in a flash. With a very high usage in tournaments, having one of the highest win rate over 50%, more than Great Tusk, which shares S rank spot with it. Our heads bow down to the King and we all say in respect, long live the King. And thus, my friends, is why Kingambit is the best Pokemon in the Scarlet and Violet OU tier, sharing the top spot with Great Tusk with an S+ rank. And I'm pretty sure in the upcoming times, if not Kingambit gets banned, it is definitely gonna surpass Great Tusk in taking the #1 spot. So my friends, if you like this type of video, make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button because we are on the goal to 10k, so let's get that goal pretty soon. And also, take care, stay safe, and peace, my dear friends.